This program was first broadcast on Canterbury's community access radio station Plains FM 96.9 and was made with the assistance of New Zealand On Air.
Kia ora, I'm Tanya Didham, and this month on Eastern Rising, as public consultation on the Red Zone kicks off, and not a moment too soon, we consider the potential future of Christchurch's awaiting River Red Zone. The River Red Zone comprises 450 hectares, that's the same as 450 rugby fields, an area that winds its way seaward from the city, following the river through the ill-fated suburbs of Avonside, Richmond, Dallington, Burwood, New Brighton, Bexley. But while this broken, asymmetrical swathe of land represents the shocking and painful loss of some 5,000 homes in the east, it also represents an opportunity to create something grand and unique for Christchurch. Groups like the Avon Waitākiri Network and Eastern Vision canvassed the community for a wish list, and from that public forum, all community-led, many creative and thoughtful ideas emerged. Chief among those, and foundational to many of the concepts, is reforestation, the ecological restoration of the river and estuary red zone. Ashley Campbell was living and working in Auckland when the Canterbury earthquake struck. Her parents' riverside home was red zoned, and Ashley moved back to Christchurch to be part of the regeneration. More than 3 years on, she is still passionately at the forefront of community advocacy as founder and co-chair of Greening the Red Zone. I recently caught up with Ashley at a river clean-up event organised by the group in the Bexley Red Zone. So, Ashley, what inspired you to pack up your life in Auckland and move back down to Christchurch?
Well, I'd been living in Auckland for 16 years, and then when the quakes happened, my parents were seriously affected. They lost their house, and that was the house that I grew up in. And just basically over the months I became more and more and more involved. My focus was down here, and so I just decided that it was time to actually move my body down here as well, yeah.
And so you actually were coming down specifically to help with the rebuild?
Well, yes, so I started what was then called the Avon River Park Facebook page, and you know, that just took off. It got a huge amount of support very quickly, and so that led to the formation of Avon Waitākiri Network, which I was part of, and I realised that this was where all my emotional energy was, yeah.
Yes, and a lot of other people too. So what is the actual vision that you guys have for the Red Zone?
Well, so at Greening the Red Zone, we're focusing purely on ecological restoration. Our base idea is that as much of this red zone as possible gets returned to what nature wants for it. So we're talking forest, we're talking wetland, we're talking some open habitats. We want to create a place that brings nature right back into Christchurch, that helps Christchurch get in touch with where it's from, and that provides all the benefits that nature has to city dwellers.
And what kind of benefits are those in terms of environmental benefits, yes, social, health benefits?
Oh, the health benefits are absolutely huge, actually. Several people have heard me quote a study done by Peter Tate and Suzanne Valence in 2013 that basically estimated that a restored eco-park through the entire Avon River Red Zone would create physical health benefits, just physical health benefits, of $50.3 million a year. And that's not from putting anything extra in there apart from the old walking or cycling track. So those benefits all come from the increased walking and cycling, which you can see happening already if you go into the red zone on a day like this. There are always people walking their dogs, going for a family bike ride, just walking and enjoying nature. And of course, if you return it to an even better place, even more people will do that.
Wow! That looks like a real word. Oh my God! Quick, quick, quick! And here's another tireless volunteer. Lou Stella is secretary of the Greening the Red Zone group. So Lou, what made you join Greening the Red Zone?
Well, I've always been interested in native plants and ecology, and then I got red zoned. I used to live in Avonside, and I thought, really, there's no better purpose for this land than putting it back into nature.
I couldn't agree more, and being here today and checking out the red zone, you can see how much potential there is.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's plenty of people have planted natives in their old gardens, and you can see most of them doing really well.
Wetlands forming all around us.
As we speak. Yeah, it's amazing.
So here we are, Ashley, at your old childhood home. How does it feel?
Oh, well, it's still, as I was saying to the other people, still when I look down from Pages Road and see this line of trees here, I still get an instant recognition and that instant feeling of being home.
As for all the exotic trees that are around here, part of the greening the red zone thing is to pretty much leave them, is that right?
Well, certainly, as you know, while they're here, they are providing good shelter and perch and habitat for birds, and we don't want to rip out trees and have nothing here. So certainly in our lifetimes, those exotic trees that are not invasive would stay. What happens past our lifetimes is for our children and grandchildren to decide.
In terms of like the wildlife and the birds, what can we expect to see back here in the city?
Well, we heard that beautiful bellbird, didn't we? We ran round after that bellbird. We will also see cormorants of all sorts, maybe some herons. We saw some spur-winged plover. There's been a huge return of wildlife to Bexley anyway since the wetlands were cleaned up, and that can only improve. And just imagine waking up in a suburb adjoining the red zone to the song of bellbirds and tui. We've got all that to look forward to, and not just in the red zone, but to spread from the red zone throughout the entire city so that all of Christchurch gets its birds back.
Yes.
Yes, absolutely. While we're talking about the red zone, the benefits are for the entire city.
Absolutely.
So this whole area, it dropped by a metre in the quakes. Where we're standing dropped by a metre. Those who lived here and came down off Pages Road will remember what that was like. It is now below the median tide line. So where we're standing should be underwater a lot of the time. Yeah. And as we've seen, that's actually beginning to happen. Bexley in particular has great potential to take all that flood water. When the tidal surge comes up the Avon, you can protect New Brighton by diverting it all into Bexley. And actually that helps the wildlife come back. It makes the place healthier. It's just win-win for everyone, really.
Win-win. It's just the obvious solution, isn't it?
It is, absolutely. And I don't think there's any doubt that that's what will happen in Bexley.
Yay! It was lovely coming across the bellbird in the red zone. With habitat regeneration, we may also soon hear more of Ashley's favourite, the grey warbler, and the gorgeous tui. Now I'm talking to Celia Hogan, a very busy working mum and co-chair of Greening the Red Zone. Thanks for talking to us, Celia. What motivates you to volunteer your time to projects like this?
Well, I've always volunteered since I was a teenager, and I guess one of the things that got me into this was I was living over in London when the earthquakes hit, and I really wanted to get involved in, making Christchurch a better place after such tragedy. But I also lived really close to what was an old railway line, and they'd lifted it up and it became a walking trail or running track, and I really valued my time in nature in the middle of a busy city. I think that was... It really hit home. Having easy access to nature was so important for my time there.
Reforestation will provide the foundation for many other projects in the Red Zone. You're also involved in the Natural Playgrounds proposal. What can you tell us about that?
Yeah, so I'm part of a group called Nature Play Christchurch, and we meet every Friday and play in nature, and we put together a nature play and nature space playground proposal for the Red Zone. So it can be used anywhere within the Red Zone, and it's just about getting people out there using the spaces and availability for children to use those spaces too.
Sounds fantastic. You can imagine a network of play spaces throughout the forest park that cleverly incorporate the environment and some good old-fashioned tree climbing. Just what kids love.
Yes. The other thing to remember is reforestation and wetlands. it can incorporate many different proposals that are environmentally complementary. So there's a lot of different things out there that we may not know about that are also going to support our proposal.
And here are a few more samples of what we could be hearing in a greened red zone: a kōtari, or kingfisher, the adorable squeaky fantail, and another sound we'd certainly hear in a natural playground. We're fortunate to have the very busy Dr. Colin Merck here to talk about the red zone. Anyone interested in the environment will know Colin's tireless work as co-founder and president of the Travis Wetland Trust and passionate pioneer of the 360 Trail, a walk odyssey encircling Christchurch and covering 135 kilometres in 8 days. What do you think should happen in the residential red zone?
Well, I think all things considered, the geotechnics and sea level rise and the natural environment, the obvious thing is to look at greening as much of it as possible, to incorporate a mosaic of forested and wetland environments, to provide flood mitigation and filtration, but also importantly to raise the profile and the viability of some of our more endangered charismatic wildlife.
The Waitākiri Ecosanctuary will use just 30 hectares of red zone land, but by connecting that with Travis Wetland, it will become an incredible 180 hectare predator-free reserve. Colin, what will this bring to Christchurch that Travis Wetland doesn't already, and how will people interact with it?
So it's very much about adding value. Already, of course, there's a wonderful wildlife experience at Travis Wetland and also along the Waitākiri corridor. But unfortunately, many of our native bird species and lizards have zero tolerance of the many introduced predators. So we have to provide absolute protection against those. And the best option for us here is to provide a predator-proof fence which stops all kinds of introduced mammalian predators. This will enable many of our endangered species to establish and to form viable populations, and then of course also to feed out into other sort of stepping stones across the wider landscape of the city and even across the plains.
A feasibility study's already been done on the sanctuary, which indicated huge public support. So what now needs to happen to get this project underway?
Well, it has to be open to the public because it's already a public reserve. We have to sort of deal with the road, of course, that goes through the middle of it, through a wildlife bridge. And of course we also have to kind of take this to the bodies responsible for the future of the red zone, Regenerate Christchurch, City Council and Ngāi
I imagine it also ties in with the Mahinga Kai exemplar.
Oh, absolutely. In fact, the Mahinga Kai exemplar is right adjacent to the Ecosanctuary and of course would provide the first stepping stone, if you like, outside of the fenced area. But yes, the aims and goals are totally compatible.
How is the land bridge over the road going to work? Have we seen examples of this elsewhere?
Yes, there are wildlife bridges in other parts of the world, in Europe and Scandinavia and in the States, and they usually are providing means for large mammals to cross heavy trafficked motorways. In this case, it would be a much lighter structure that would enable walking pedestrians as well as ground-based birds to move across Travers Road safely and without predators getting in, so that they can expand their territory and also retreat onto higher ground during times of high flood.
So what species of native birds and flora and fauna are we expecting back into our red zone with the sanctuary?
Well, apart from those that are already visiting there, like bellbirds and keruru sometimes, a lot of wetland birds, basically ground-dwelling species like kiwi and takahe, weka perhaps, to facilitate tui spreading back into the city from Banks Peninsula, where their stronghold is at the moment. We've got some, visionary sort of ideas in the future of kakapo and saddlebacks and brown teal and also a lot of wonderful lizard species, jeweled geckos and all that kind of thing. So, we've got aspirational goals out there.
And what about the forest and plants themselves?
Yes, there's already a lot of revegetation that's gone on in Travers wetland over the last 20-odd years. And so a lot of that will be continuing, modelling on Riccarton bush, Kaikatea, Pōkaka forest, but on the drier dune environments and on some of the landfill environments, we're going more into the Matai Tautara kind of forest. And of course, in the low-lying areas will be sort of wetlands. And these provide important refuges for bittern and fern birds and so on. Cantabrians are the biggest population group in the country that don't have access to this kind of experience of our iconic wildlife. Every other centre does, and we're missing out on our birthright in a way.
That was Dr. Colin Merck, renowned land care ecologist, and just the right person to have around when you are restoring ecosystems. And if you want to be part of the future Eastern Podocarp Forest, the Travers Wetland Trust has planting days every third Saturday of the month. Get down there with the kids and start planting some future forest. Colin told me he once looked a kakapo right in the eye, and it was a life-changing experience. Here is its distinctive call, followed by the also endangered saddleback and the takahe. Another idea which has attracted a lot of attention is the Red Zone Dark Sky Park. Along with the ecological restoration of the river, this concept takes in the entire 450 hectares. John Hernshaw, Professor Emeritus of Astronomy at Canterbury University and one of the founders of the incredible Aoraki Mackenzie Dark Sky Reserve in Tekapo, is here to tell us more about it. Kia ora, John. I think people will be surprised to learn that on a clear moonless night in Christchurch, there are only between 500 and 800 visible stars. Will there be many more in the Dark Sky Park?
Well, in the Aoraki Mackenzie region, because the sky is extremely dark there, on a clear moonless night, probably about 5,000 stars are visible. In the Dark Sky Park we are proposing for the Red Zone, I'm hoping there might be about 2,000 stars visible.
And so stargazing isn't really the main thrust, is it? What are the other benefits for the forest park of the dark sky illumination?
Certainly, stargazing is a fairly minor benefit of our dark sky park proposal. I think the two biggest benefits are if you have good lighting at night, this protects the environment, and particularly nocturnal species. I think the Dark Sky Park will be a great place for moorpork and other nocturnal native birds. But it's not only nocturnal species. Just about every species of plant and animal is affected by light at night, because all plants and animals have evolved to have a day-night rhythm. And too much light at night has destroyed that rhythm, so all species are actually affected. The other big benefit of the Dark Sky Park is to be an exemplar of good lighting practices.
Now, this concept would surely work well with other Red Zone projects.
I think most of the projects, like the Waitākiri Ecosanctuary and the city farm and cycleways and pathways, most of these projects would benefit from good lighting.
Are there any concerns about crime or the darkness in the park?
Well, safety is certainly very important, and a lot of people think if you have a dark sky park, there aren't any lights at all, and it won't be safe, and people will jump out from behind bushes in the darkness. That's not the case at all. We're not proposing no lights, just good lights. Good lights are those which don't cause glare, and glare is when lights shine directly into your eyes destroying your dark adaptation, and glare reduces safety. So good lights actually enhance safety, and that's what we are proposing.
Fantastic. Thank you, John. It's a fascinating project. And in fact, here to expand further on the lighting logistics is Kevin Corley, internationally renowned lighting designer, recipient of numerous awards in the field, most recently for his work lighting the Isaac Theatre Royal. Kia ora and welcome, Kevin.
Kia ora.
Kevin, you have a reputation for innovation and thinking outside the box in this field, so what part of this project really attracted you and engages you?
Well, I think it's the opportunity to be able to use my expertise that I've gained over the last 30 years. I mean, we make a lot of mistakes in lighting, and I think the way that I've always learnt is that you need to test things before you try them actually in reality. And one of the things that's attracted me about this particular project is because of the vast area that we're needing to light, there will be lots of different zones and different effects that we can have within the space.
What kind of ideas do you have for the actual lighting design?
Well, because I'm a theatrical lighting designer, I've got numerous ideas. In the theatre, for example, if we were going to create trees on a stage, we would use a thing called a gobo, which is purely a pattern where you throw light through, but you create the pattern on the stage. It creates a stunning effect. If you're thinking about moonlight shining through a tree, then that's what you get.
In terms of the lighting design, then, you'll be looking at a lot of community consultation?
Yes, that's correct, because I think everybody has a really interesting take on how light actually looks, because there's no way in the world we're ever going to get moonlight, but we can come close to creating it, that's for sure.
Absolutely. Thank you, Kevin. I think the Dark Sky project sounds really exciting, and it's only fitting that the last bird word go to our two most famous nighttime birds, the ruru, little night owl or moorpork, and the kiwi. My thanks to everyone who shared their inspiring Red Zone projects. It's easy to imagine a flourishing ecosystem emerging from the Red Zone because it's already happening. We saw plenty of ecology growing straight out of the tarmac on the Bexley cleanup, not to mention the border plants and trees of all those once-loved gardens. Volunteers like those involved with the amazing Avon Ōtākaro Forest Park and the Mahinga Kai exemplar have been out there planting for years, showing us how it can be done. If you haven't been to the Red Zone, why not? Go. It's an experience in itself. A sublimely tragic suburban quake scar that could easily be nudged in the direction of jaw-dropping city-to-sea forest and wetland park, fed by the Ecosanctuary, lit with dark sky park lighting, full of spaces for play and leisure, and of course that incredible green commuter route through nature, all the way from the sea to the inner city. Right now it's still in limbo. Most of the inner roads are closed to cars, but open to walkers, foragers, bikers, joggers, picnickers, birdwatchers. A unique legacy of the earthquake, so go have a look and be involved in making it something we can be proud to pass on to our children and the generations that follow. Kia ora.